I think we all have some of those stories in our life, the little stories that you would think would just be totally meaningless, but actually offer some kind of meaningful insight. One of the things that sticks out in my mind is about 10 years ago, I was in the United States, and I was sitting with a friend of mine at a dinner. And I'm asking him what he wants to order for dinner. And he's like, well, I think I'm going to get the so-and-so. And I'm like, well, I thought you didn't really like that. He's like, yeah, I was thinking the fish, but it's too expensive. And I'm like, it's $4 more. He's like, yeah, I know, it's too much for me. I'm like, just spend the $4. Now, if you're following Nomad Capitalist and you are the 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur, I would hope that you're getting the thing that you really want that costs $4 more. But what I want to talk about is to inspire you to not settle. I'm going to give you some examples from my own life of things that I've done where I settled and regretted it. Because when we talk about go where you're treated best, there is an element of freedom, there's an element of prosperity. But I think that if you add that up, at the end of the day, what's the reason to have all of that stuff? It's that you don't have to settle. If you want to spend more time with your family, or you just want to buy more shoes at Louis Vuitton, the lifestyle we talk about allows you to do that because it allows you to go where you're treated best. I can tell you when I lived in the United States, I was successful. But there's something about setting aside and then sending 43% of your income off to the government, nearly half of every dollar that you make, so they can squander it. There's something about that that makes you feel like you're not nearly that successful, at least in my mind. I can tell you now that I have gone where I'm treated best and set up my affairs in a legal way to where I can keep a lot more of my money and give what I do give to people who actually respect it and are good stewards of it. I can tell you that I feel a lot better off. And so when you end up keeping more of your own money, you end up doing more things that make sure that you don't have to settle. That's the whole purpose of this. And so for some people, again, that's going to be, I'm not going to work as hard. I'm just going to work as hard as I'm working now, but I'll keep more of my own money so I can spend more time with the family and more time doing charitable work, more time doing hobbies, whatever. If you're a workaholic as I am, you'll just spend, you'll spend more time and maybe you'll get a nicer home, or you'll stay in a nicer hotel, or you'll get a nicer suit made, or whatever. And so that brings me to some of the things that I see people doing, including myself, when they go overseas. Because what we talk about here is the fact that going overseas can be a little scary. I get that. And I get the fact that you might want to dip your toe in. In fact, that's advice that I give. Dip your toe in, open the smaller bank account, put in a little bit of money, then put in more money, see how you feel. Keep raising the stakes until you totally feel comfortable. But let me tell you a few things that I did where I settled, and I regret it. If you're going to go and buy real estate overseas, you probably want to make sure that you're buying the piece of property that you want. So for me, that's generally going to be a property that's in the city center. I don't want to own a car. I don't want to drive. I don't even want to rely on a ride-hailing app, because in a lot of the places where I live, it can be a little frustrating. The people who drive these cars aren't super geniuses. I'd rather just be responsible for myself. So I want to own an apartment, for example, that's in the city center. I want to own a home that's walking distance to wherever I want to go. And so when I first got a home in Montenegro, I did it very quickly. I followed my own advice. I do hell yes or no. I found a place. I said, yes, let's do it. Send me the contract. Let's buy it. Let's go. And I got it. It was a great deal, and it's turned out to be a great financial deal. But here's the problem. I could have bought more. I could have made a hell yes decision on a more expensive property, but I was not comfortable dipping my toe in that deep to the water at that point. So I bought a property that was less expensive. And I didn't realize, because I was so focused on the lower price, that it was a little bit further away from things that I wanted. Not the end of the world. I love the views. I love the ambience. I have a great patio there. But eventually I said, you know what? This is a little too small for me. It's just not quite what I want. I want to be near the yacht club. I want to be near the places where I want to be, and I want to be able to walk there. So I'm going to sell this place. And I ended up going out and buying a new place with an even nicer view that's within walking distance, and certainly within Vespa-ing distance to the places in Montenegro where I really like to spend time. And so I think that it's being honest with yourself and asking yourself when you're going to do a transaction such as buying real estate overseas, is this really what I want? Or is this just me being afraid to go in deeper? Now, obviously, we'd all like to live in a crazy rich Asian's mansion. Doesn't mean that we can all afford it. And so you have to be honest about what you're able to afford. But I can tell you, I could have afforded at the time to buy what I really wanted to buy. But I was just a little bit too timid because I hadn't done a deal there before and I didn't know what it was like. And so quite frankly, this is where I think mentorship comes into play, where you can have someone who will tell you, don't worry, it'll be okay, I'm handling everything. And if I would have had that kind of person in Montenegro when I bought, which I do now, I would have bought more. And I wouldn't have had the hassle of now at one point having to hold 2 properties and then sell the second property or sell the first property so I can only own the second property. I had to carry 2 properties at one time. It's just a bit more of a mess. And while everything turned out fine, I made a profit in the first property, everything was okay, there was that added stress of being in a place that I totally wasn't on board with, and then the stress of transitioning out of that into the next place when I could have just gone right to what I really wanted. And so I think that's what's really important. I think that understanding what you want, starting with the end in mind, is important when you're planning your whole offshore plan. Being honest with yourself about what you're willing to commit. I told a story in another video where someone came to me recently and said they wanted to move 60% of their liquid cash overseas. And I said, I'm totally cool with that, and we can get you some great banks moving $1.5 million overseas. But I said, do you want to dip your toe in a bit more first? Let's be honest about what you want. And let's not go too far the other direction and say, let's put $1,000 in offshore banks, because we're not going to get much for that. But let's make sure that we're exactly where you want to be. And let's make sure we've got a plan to scale. And let's make sure then we've got a plan for where you want to be physically, where you want to live. I think assessing what you want is something that I've really learned is important. Assessing what you really want so that then you can not settle. When I started out doing deals, I focused only on dollar value, to where when I was in Tbilisi, I bought a house that was a great deal. I ended up selling it, but I only sold it after I was cajoled by my then girlfriend to buy a house in the city center in an area that I wanted, in a historic building. But I said, it's $4,000 overpriced. I said, I think it's worth X, and they're selling it for X plus 4,000. And she's like, what are you doing with your life? You're going to be miserable for $4,000? So what? The property's going up in value anyway. Eventually, you'll get it back. So what if you're overpaying $4,000? Enjoy your life. So that's the other issue, is that a lot of times the entrepreneurs that we see here at Nomad Capitalist, we all have a bit of an ego to be an entrepreneur, right? You have to have a bit of an ego. And there's that thing of, I'm not going to overpay, even if it makes me happy. I'm going to make sure I get the best deal. I do the best deals. Everyone loves my deals. And there's a thing to where, you don't really want to get caught up in that all the time. At a certain point, don't settle. At a certain point, if you're like me, and let's say you make $1 million a year, and you're paying 50% tax in the US, and now you can pay 10% tax somewhere else, take the extra $400,000, save a lot of it, but maybe you squander a few bucks overpaying $4,000 for a property, or investing a bit more in a property that's closer to the area that you want to be, or doing something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And so I think having an understanding of what that's going to look like for yourself is an essential element of going offshore and doing this whole journey, not just about reducing your taxes, but what is your life going to look like? How do you want to live? Because to me, not settling, whatever that is to you, whatever that means to you, is the #1 reason you're doing this at the end of the day. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus, traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.